Okay, hi everybody. This video is a intro to kind of one of the main parts of this whole course, which is critical thinking. So before we really get into analyzing literature, I want to take a moment to talk about critical thinking, what it is, and why it matters. So this is a quote directly taken from a website, criticalthinking.org, and I really like the way that this is laid out. So essentially, we are always biased. That's not an insult. That's not a bad thing. It is inherent in the fact that we only exist within the world as a product of our experiences, and everybody is different. And because of that, it means the way that we think and the way that we communicate is subjective to ourselves. The problem is that when we want to engage in writing or in discourse with other people, we have a tendency to believe, right, in this sort of confirmation bias, or to really desperately want to be correct, or in many cases, we just don't really know how to apply methods of thinking that move us beyond our own shortcomings of our own experiences. So critical thinking is really when we think about anything in a way that improves the quality of our thinking. It takes practice and it takes skill. So why does critical thinking matter? Well, more than anything, more than any time in history, I think that we are living in an environment that really requires critical thinking. We have information coming at us from everywhere, and it can be difficult to sort of suss out truth, whether there is such a thing, from misleading ideas. Whether that comes from social media, whether that comes from advertising, whether that comes from having arguments with people in your family or friends circle. And also, the world is very divisive right now. Everybody has very strong opinions about politics, about the economy, religion, our health right now, the environment. And ultimately, as I mentioned, it feels good to be right. So this is why critical thinking really matters. So for an example, right, is there really such a thing as truth? We might believe that the sky is blue because that is the sort of conventional way of thinking, right? That's what we were taught. But when we think about it, there's plenty of times and plenty of perspectives that show us that that fact, that statement, is not necessarily the be all end all truth. We need to think about perspective. We need to think about purpose. We need to think about condition and context. All of these things help us to communicate our position. And when we are receiving people's position, thinking about these things help us to understand, right, meaning. So essentially, critical thinking means asking why. Why did the author write this? Right? What is the purpose of communicating this message? And why do I respond to it the way that I do? So these two questions encompass all of the different skills and techniques of applying critical thinking. Throughout this module, we're going to talk about a number of these things: confirmation bias, nuance, humility, and the sort of technical terms will come toward the end when it comes to evaluating sources, looking at methods of proof, and looking at the way that different fallacies end up in our media and in the things that we write and watch and consume. So that is essentially what we're looking at in terms of thinking critically. So move through all of the different readings and activities through this module, and keep in mind, right, what is this idea that we have about why is it the author wrote what they wrote, and why is it that I feel the way I feel? And you will be well on your way into critical thinking. Thanks very much.